I share this, let's see if you can still. All right, so now is it? Now do I have a full screen slide up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to floating meeting. There was a way to somehow I could have it so you could actually see me or whoever is speaking. Oh, and I had it before. What the heck? Share computer. Oh. Oh, you know what? I think. Hang on, kids. How about this one? If I share this one. Okay, if I share this, can you see Isla right now? Over in the right?
Yes, I can see her on the right.
Okay, there we go. And then Kylan popped up when he started talking.
You
Okay.
can change it too on how you want it to be viewed.
Tell me again, Asia?
So if you like put your mouse over the pictures.
Yeah. Oh.
On the top, you can change the view.
Like, can you see 6 of us now?
Well, you could change on your own computer. So like right now I can see like 6 of you guys, but like.
Oh. Okay.
Or 5, I guess.
Oh. Yeah, okay, yeah, do that. So this is good. All right. And I don't really need to see. Oh, I can move you over there. All right. So look at that. All right. I knew most of you, I don't know, do any of you have more than one monitor? All of you have one, which would be what more normal people have. But man, once you have a second monitor, you'll never live without one. So I'm able to move our Brady Bunch course grid over here on one monitor, and then you all are still seeing the PowerPoint file, right? Okay, and then are you all at least able to see one person talking? And then so if you hold your cursor over, I guess it's probably me because I'm the one talking. If you hold it over there at the top of the box, you got some thumbnail. Oh, you got thumbnail view, small active speaker video, thumbnail video, and then you can select the grid, and then you can make that grid as big as you want. So I'm spoiled. I got the second monitor here, and I'm able to actually have the grid big enough I can actually see you all out of the corner of my eye. All right. Okay. Good. Asia, you using this for something else? This another class, or you just discovered that, or?
No, I have to use it for another class.
Yeah. Anybody else using Zoom for other classes?
Invasive species.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, that'll be. Okay. Good. All right. So the other day, so I guess it would have been Friday, because Monday we talked about that simulation, experiment simulation, the whole time we met on Monday. So if you think back to Friday, right, the last thing we looked at there was this one, talking about support being, in most cases, new money, right? Money that you're either going to get outright or have the capacity to get reimbursed after it's spent out. And I think I'm thinking maybe I mentioned like the Frogbit project that some of you have helped with, and the rest of you have the opportunity because we got funding for one more year this year coming up, and we certainly do anticipate that field work going forward, because I really suspect by the time we get to the field season there that our COVID-19 situation will have subsided to the point that we can realistically be doing that. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball and know that, but that's just a semi-educated guess. But anyway, that's how that program works. Is we got a grant proposal funded through a DEC program, and it is channeled through the town of Cazenovia. One of the things that you will have to learn if you get involved with trying to get money for either actual original research or just money for projects of any kind. And most people get involved with that in some way, shape, or form as they move along through their career. You will find that grant programs are oftentimes specific in terms of who is eligible and who is not. This grant program through which we have money to do our this frogbit project is Mac, what's your dog's name? I'm going to mess with him or her. Oh, your microphone's off.
Her name is Maggie.
Maggie.
I have a headphone in, but
Oh, well then Mac. Oh, so the grant program, huh? It's the best I got, Mac. That grant program is municipalities are the only entities eligible. So colleges, universities, nonprofits now eligible. So the money that has paid Kiernan and Kylan and potentially a few others. I've talked to Taylor because she lives close enough to potentially. Oh, and Jacqueline, I think I talked to you as well, right? About the Frogbit project, maybe getting you involved. Okay, I'm talking to you now, Jacqueline. This is an opportunity, some experience. Paige, I don't know, you're not too far away, only in Sherburne. Nice thing about this project, one of the many nice things about this project is we have the luxury of, I would say, a lot of flexibility, and so we can get somebody who, like Paige, you live, and Isla, you'd be another example. Yeah, you two. Financially, I'm not sure how worth it would be to come from home to drive here to Kaz to help, for what we're able to pay a bit over minimum wage, which has gone up in the last year or two, but we can get you some experience without you having to make that commute every day. Okay, and but anyway, the way we have this set up is through an agreement between the college and the entity actually eligible for getting reimbursed. That is the town of Casnovia, not the village, but the town. We bring people on board on the payroll of the college, and then the college pays them, and then periodically, and this has been at the end of each of the first 2 years, we put together a documentation for that is at the college, we put together a documentation what to be spend in terms of paying Kyle and Kieran and everybody else, their wages, the FICA and all that stuff, and then give that to the town. The town reimburses us, and the town in turn, at the same time or after, they basically submit the reimbursement through the DEC, the grant program. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background that unfortunately means there's a lot more happening with a lot of projects than meets the eye, but it's the way it is. Sometimes you got to think creatively about how you're going to try and make things happen. So, and this is a good example here. So you got this grant program that would fund a project that is broadly, think like everybody who lives around or near the lake or uses it. We see this as something very positive, something we want to see happen one way or the other, but the college can't apply for the money. The Lake Association cannot apply for the money, but the town can. But the problem with that is government agencies, and this is right down through local levels, they're a bureaucracy. They are not, generally speaking, they're not nimble. They're not able to be as flexible in a lot of ways as something like Casnovia College can. So that's how we ended up figuring out, and this is the result of email threads and phone conversations, how can we make this work and, get access to this money to get this project done, and hire a bunch of young people and old people. Age doesn't matter, but it happens to be mostly young people. How to hire them and be able to pay them. And even though it's not full-time permanent employment, okay, so it is for most of the folks who've been helping with this, it's been part-time. In other words, they aren't getting 37.5 hours a week, and then they're certainly not. It's just a short-term employment. We're talking about just a number of weeks out of the year. So that, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like, okay, that seems fairly straightforward now that it's in place. But to get it in place, with a lot of conversations with, excuse me, administrators, payroll, because basically what we were asking our human resources folks, and these are some people that a couple of you had interaction with, like Mac. I know you, as a work study student, you've interacted with Karen Checksfield, maybe Janice Romanoli, but basically we created a whole lot more work for them, and the college just absorbed the cost of that, largely in part because I was able to tell the powers that be, so to speak, that this is going to be an opportunity and was going to employ some of our students and help them get experience, and and is worth that extra effort. So anyway, kind of a illustration of how in real life sometimes that so-called new money ends up being routed. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so we just shifted slides, right? You're seeing a different thing here. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So in terms of a proposal, with our text, you've got to be very concise. Like writing a research grant proposal is about a concise piece of writing as you're ever going to have to put together. The page maximums or the word maximums are typically make you feel like you've just got to be more concise than with almost anything else you're ever going to do. Even submitting journal articles, and they almost always have a page maximum, or a maximum that is even if it's not written. If you take a look in a journal and look at the general page lengths there, that gives you a good idea of what the editors are going to be looking for. If you don't see any papers in there that are more than 12 pages altogether, if you go and submit a 20-page paper, you can be guaranteed somebody's going to come back and say you got to slash and burn and trim this down, or if the scope of the work is so big that those 20 pages are actually like you just can't see any way to do that, they may say split it out into two parts, to a two-part paper. Anyway, what you've got to do is you want to describe the problem to the reviewers, right, in language that they can understand, and that's a challenge. You write and rewrite that because that's the front end piece. That's going to be the hook, or the failure to be the hook, to get their attention and interest. And then if they aren't on board with that, they're not going to get as far as reading your work plan. And so that's got to be, you got to prove to them that it is going to be effective, it's going to do the job, and it's going to be efficient. I talked last Friday, remember we talked about when we talked about padding the numbers. Somebody give us a refresher on that. What does it mean to pad the numbers when we put together a budget? What do you got there? Somebody. Isla, what do you got? Pad the numbers. Oh, it's like your microphone. I can't hear you, Isla.
I said I don't really remember.
Isla. Okay, that's why we're going over again. Come on, somebody. Matt. Yeah, you, Matt. Matt with a T. Sorry, I'm congested enough that.
Matt or Mac.
Huh?
I didn't know if you said Matt or
Yeah,
Mac.
I'm sorry. I'll have to go Matt, T, and C. Then it still rhymes. I'm congested enough. Some of my enunciation isn't quite there. But anyway, what do you got?
So it's like giving a prediction for the amount of money you need with leaving a little bit of wiggle room for unexpected costs.
Okay, good.
Like that.
Yeah, yep. Very good. Yeah, so we do our best job of estimating what we're going to need, and then we got to also put some thought into, just like Matt said, whatever level of uncertainty there is, okay? And so we have to be efficient with funds. We need enough people power, enough equipment to get the job done, but we can't be wasteful. I mean, you can be, but that's, you know, whatever money you waste means that you can't use it for something else, or somebody else can't use it for something else. And in the area that most of you are going into, these areas, I mean, typically people are, get into biology, environmental biology specifically, because they really care about what they're doing. And so they're not interested in, I don't know, just stockpiling equipment with the idea that maybe use it for some other project. It's always a good idea to have some extra stuff in hand. Even for like simple projects like this frog bit thing, this is about as low tech as it gets, but we use gloves, we use 4-prong cultivator tools. When we figured out that that was going to be a pretty good combination, or those, especially those 4-prong things, yeah, we have a few more than we're actually using at one time, but the things could get broke. Well, I guess if somebody stole one or two, then, or they stole the whole bunch of them, we'd be back to square one. But yeah, we want to have a couple of extras. You know, you can get a pretty good. Generally, we can have a pretty good idea of how long something is going to last, right? How quick it's going to get used up. All right. Okay. Good. And that's said. You got to be very concise. Excuse me. So we, every grant proposal I've ever put together, in some way, shape, or form, they will ask to something about your qualifications. They might not actually ask you to submit your resume or your CV, but sometimes they do, and sometimes that's actually a requirement. That would be for more of a bigger grant opportunities, like big money, through either a state or a federal agency. Typically for the proposals go into like a foundation, some other kind of a nonprofit entity. Typically they might ask just for, what are your qualifications, like a paragraph or something like that. And then you focus in narrowly on your qualifications that are related to that particular project. Okay. Sometimes you might not even want to share your CV, or at least not in its current form. As you go along and you do more and more things, everything you do, if it's something that gets added to that CV, obviously that document's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, some of that stuff, it's so far in the rearview mirror, it's occurred so far in the past, it might just be distracting, irrelevant for somebody reviewing a current proposal. And even worse, it might appear that you're just trying to brag about what you've done. But if it's been stuff over many years, who cares what you did, 10 years ago or more? Most things become irrelevant in a lot of contexts. Okay, like for all you, right? Some of your high school stuff, it's relevant now, but another 5 years, some of that stuff's going to fall away. Your qualification, your skill sets, you as a whole, you are developing more rapidly now than you will at any point in the future. So, some of these things will get replaced, quicker than I'm replacing stuff at this point. Okay. All right. Oops. Next one. Here we go. All right. Here's an important one. So you have to think about, you've got multiple audiences, and so you all, you took, or you will take if you haven't already, like effective speaking, right? Is anybody not completed effective speaking or in it right now?
Island.
Really? Oh well. But you all have it, so you've either taken the course, you're in it, and so you've or in other classes, you've had to think about your audience, right? So Kylan and everybody, like invasive species, we're thinking about our audience there. We've got undergraduate students, all of who are I think they are actually either bio or environmental bio. I don't think we have any doing a minor in there, but anyway, they're all within a range of education level, background level, and interest. So geared towards that, right? For that presentation. With a research proposal, or a proposal period, whether it's a research project or a project, right? So like this frog bit project, this is not a research project. This is a this is an invasive species control project. It's a management type of a project, but you've got to write for a general audience, okay? Because oftentimes there will be, like we use the same pair of terms we use in ecology, generalists versus specialists. But instead of thinking about like, oh, white-tailed deer, they're a generalist, they're a habitat generalist. We find them, you know, urban part of the landscape, agriculture, intact forest, blah, 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 versus a specialist, excuse me, where an organism has a much more restricted set of requirements for it to be there in the long term. We use those terms in this context as well. So a generalist, the best example here, a good example would be grant programs that are with state or higher level agencies, state or federal. There are people employed within those agencies and whose job is either primarily or at least primarily for a length of time to review proposals. And let's take an example like, I don't know, let's get something away from like frog bit. Something with, if you're going to proposal to the National Institute of Health, right? Which is an agency that is actually getting more press coverage right now than it usually does. NIH, the National Institute of Health, that is our primary federal agency. I'm guessing, I mean, it certainly has one of the biggest budgets in terms of a human health research entity on the planet, because it's with the U.S. and, you know, everything we do is bigger than most other nations do in terms of dollars spent. NIH, a big part of what they do is to take federal research dollars and distribute that to the entities that are doing the research, in most cases research universities, and they manage that money. And so within the NIH, same could be said for the CDC, right, or Center for Disease Control, the NIH and NSF, National Science Foundation. That's another huge federal agency that distributes a lot of research dollars out to non-governmental agencies. In both cases, there are many people employed by those agencies who we would consider to be generalists. They look at these proposals. They have expertise broadly in these areas, but each proposal, many of the proposals that come in are likely to not be in their specific area of expertise, right? So usually with the review process, they bring in some specialists, okay? So for example, like with what we've got going on right now with COVID, with this coronavirus, right? Which is this particular coronavirus that we sometimes is referred to as the novel coronavirus, right? How many of you have heard that phrase? You don't hear it as much, but how many of you have heard this referred to as the novel coronavirus? Not, I'm seeing heads shaking, I'm seeing blank stares. Really? Okay, well then here's a little biology along with our methods course here. So that is an appropriate term to use for it, because when we just say the coronavirus, that is not inaccurate, but coronaviruses, it's a group. The virus that gives us the common cold is a coronavirus, but this is a particular one, and so sometimes you'll see it referred to as the novel, right? Novel. And what we mean there, not like a big piece of fiction, like that kind of a novel, obviously, but novel. What else does novel mean? When we describe something as novel, like
New.
yeah, relatively new. Okay, new, original. The example I was just about to throw out is us using Teams or using Zoom is a novel approach to handling class, at least in SM211. Okay, so when you hear this or read of this being referred to as the novel coronavirus, it hasn't been picked up by the popular media. Everybody's just calling it the coronavirus, or even, I mean, I don't want to sound, I'm not trying to be I don't know, like an aloof biology type, but when we see the acronym COVID-19, that's actually the disease, not the virus, right? You all know this? You understand this? It's actually an important distinction, I believe, because potentially all of us are going to be exposed and have the virus, right? I mean, that's just a semi-educated prediction, okay? Like, what are the chances that we're not going to be exposed to it, right? I think that's very slim, right? But most people who get the virus, who actually have the virus, don't get COVID-19, okay, the disease. And COVID stands for, I think, COVID-19. The CO and the VI stand for coronavirus. And then the D, COVID, the D on the end of it, excuse me, the D on the end of it stands for disease. And then the 19 is just the last two digits of 2019 when this was first documented. Okay, does that make sense? So I know, like, I bet you every penny in the bank, at least some of us interact today, we're going to be exposed to the virus. You're going to get the virus, but hopefully none of us will get COVID-19. Okay, and hopefully nobody you know. Chances of Does any of you know anybody who's got COVID-19? Okay, Jacqueline's saying yeah, and Matt is, yeah. So I was going to say the chances of none of us nodding our heads is really, really slim at this point. And I hope they're all, doing well and recover, obviously. So, okay, anyway, why was I going on about that? Oh yeah, specialists versus generalists. Okay, so you can imagine NIH, the National Institute of Health, you got everybody who's an agency who's going to be looking at proposals. They're probably almost all medical doctors, right? They're physicians. They went to med school. Probably lots of specialists. I'm sure lots of specialists. But they're getting proposals for grant programs that are across, perhaps a wide range. Let's just take the novel coronavirus, this new virus. Think about, okay, so a number of different entities are working on a vaccine. And I haven't read or heard anything about if emergency money is going to, or how that's working in terms of funding that research. But, but let's suppose things were kind of normal. Like we had this novel a virus, and we thought, oh, this might actually become a problem. So let's get on this and put out a call, what would be called an RFP, a request for proposals. Okay. And that's a very commonly used phrase. And people who are, who deal with grants, either grant proposal writing or reviewing those, everybody knows what RFP means. It's a request for proposals. So that'll be a document that will specify what's the broad scope of what they're trying to fund. And if it was towards developing treatments, let's say treatments for a virus, a potential virus, whether it's to prevent people from getting it or treating them once they do get it, right? There will be various specialists who may have expertise some may have expertise in developing vaccines, some may have expertise in various treatments. Okay, so that's where the review of proposals would then include one or more specialists, people who have a higher level of expertise in those particular areas, and therefore be in a good position to evaluate the work plan. Basically, is this a reasonable work plan? Does it have a good chance of success, meeting objectives? Okay. And so that's where our government agencies, those are the entities that manage the really big research monies in biology. They will bring in outside reviewers, like reviewers from research institutions, okay, or state level agencies. So we got to, consider both of those audiences as we go along. Okay, oops. Okay. Last week, not last time, but last week, talked about having to be concise. You don't have much time to review literature, so you've got to be when I use the word excellent here, that means it's got to be, distilled down to, whatever word limit you're limited to, or a page limit. And typically that background stuff, you got to fit on a page, just a couple pages at most. And so you've got to focus on the very most important literature. And that is one of the things you're judged on, is because you're going to be evaluated, your proposal is going to be evaluated people who know their stuff, who they are familiar with the literature. And if you don't appear to have done your homework, then they won't get any further. All right. Oops. What did I just do? Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah. All right. Last thing here before we quit. Yeah, it's 11:05. This is kind of counterintuitive, this point right here. The actual process for getting research proposal funded, the review process, and then the process overall is actually a lot more involved than getting a paper published, even though a lot of times we think of getting a paper published as being like the ultimate part of the process of research. But, and it is, it's the culmination of that research, but the process for getting funding in place is a lot more elaborate, and much of it is we can think of it as bureaucratic. It's I mean, it's necessary. There's some limits to how streamlined that can be made, but you're talking about the transfer of money, who's going to manage it, what kind of system is going to be placed to hold people accountable for it, both you if you're the one doing the work, and also if you're the one doing the work, you obviously want to make sure that things are in place so you don't do the work and whoever you're working for puts the money up and then things were done properly, set up properly, that you can actually get reimbursed, because then you're out that money, right, that you were figured on being reimbursed for. So the whole process, what happens in the background, just makes you crazy sometimes. That frog bit project, I mean, Lauren Lyons and I, mostly Lauren, I can't take next to no credit for this part of it, spent, I'm sure, much more time just managing and filling out the paperwork and figured out, okay, how are we going to, the system for spending the money, hiring people, getting them paid, getting reimbursed, the college, getting reimbursed, all this stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And that's partly why there are people who, this is all they do. Like they manage in the background from an administrative standpoint projects. And without somebody like Lauren Lyons, who a couple of you have had some interaction with, but she's very organized, very on top of things, and does it diplomatically. That's a special skill set that not everybody possesses. You can develop those skills, certainly, but it takes some time. So, all right, we are out of time. Any questions here? Over. All right, so how'd this work? Audio, video working all right? I mean,
are we using this from now on?
Yeah. Yep. I can't think of a reason, any advantage of Teams over this. Can any of you? Like, I mean, I know none of us has a bunch of experience here, but like just looking over the monitor, I can see the 11 of you. I mean, much better than in Teams, and I can see all 11 of you. I don't know if I'll be able to see all 20 in invasive species, but I don't need to see everybody. But
wait, so we're doing this in invasive species.